All right. Hi, this is Sheila with Conscious Conversation Central, and it is now Saturday, October the 20th, 2018, here on the East Coast.
I was going to say, on the 19th, we have lots of stuff happening and new updates going on the site, but it's still Friday.
Yeah, for you, because you're on the West Coast, it's still Friday. But yeah, the energetics have been really huge all day. And then with some of what you just shared of what's been updated on the IUV. Yeah, everybody will have that before this comes out, I'm sure. But at any rate, lots of energy, upticks of energy, just exponential. So I'm back again for our third conversation of the evening with BZ Rieger and Lisa Flamino Rush. And we're going to talk this time about whether or not, are you forging links in your bondage or are you severing them? And, a lot of, when you talk about slavery, a lot of folks don't realize that even if you've got a really good job, you're still a slave too. It's just you're a little bit more, your cages might feel a little more comfy to you. But make no mistake, if you have to get up and go make the donuts, and especially if you're hating that job, but it's still a form of slavery.
Free range.
Yeah, free range. Actually, yeah. I was gonna say, there are folks that will say to you, I have made this analogy myself in my own brain, and there are folks that would take great offense about what I'm about to say. But if you think that there's any very much difference between one open air prison and another, I suggest you look really close at what's been going on. So we all have them, but in these energetics, it feels to me like, at least for me, there are ways of severing those links, that bondage.
Absolutely there are.
Yeah, there are ways.
They're not maybe are, they're not sort of are, there absolutely are, and we're the only ones who are at the tiller, the hoe, and the axe to the severing.
Well, that's the other thing too, is that
or the forging iron.
Well, true.
Because we can forge or sever, and it's our choice.
And we do a lot of both all the time, actually. I've caught myself forging another link in one that I had just broken. I've caught myself doing that because it all goes back to programming and conditioning as well. So what are some of the things that come up for you with this? Either one of you, actually.
Well, one note I wanted to make before we dove into this is it's kind of an overall data being revealed note, is that, and we've said this before, and I've talked about this a lot and keep making program notes to it, and it'll become self-evident really quickly now, that aside from the lead absolute data point story, which is being kick-ass creator beings, the main lead, above the fold, is the just how deep, all-consuming, all-pervasive the financial slavery is on this planet to every being on this planet. It goes beyond this planet, but just for linear, this planet. And the breadth and depth and deliciousness, amazing complexity in really quite beautiful, although devilish ways, but quite beautiful nonetheless. It will be for, not all, because some already realize it, but for many, nay, most, quite
shocking,
thunderstrike. Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of set that as in the background, and people can feel into that. And then, as you said, go ahead.
Well, I was just reminded of my first exposure to when I found out that the Federal Reserve was neither federal nor reserving anything. And they were actually, not at all even attached to the United States. And what actually fractional reserve banking was, that in and of itself for me back in 2009 when I learned that was shocking on its own, because I didn't understand, first of all, what the money was. So just that part of it. And then that didn't even cover what it actually is, what, I now know. But just finding out that that paper dollar is actually an instrument of debt and not worth the paper that it's actually printed on, really, was shocking enough as it is. And there's so many folks that maybe not the ones that are listening to this now, but eventually there will be folks that are listening to this that this is brand new news. And they're like, oh, no, she's crazy. That can't be. Go right to the Federal Reserve website. They will give you a pamphlet that will explain exactly what it is, because they have to.
Yes, all has to be hidden in plain sight.
Right.
And, you hear bandied about hard-backed currencies and well, it's pretty hard back I got here. So we are the value. And no, it does not mean that if I can wield a shovel or type on a computer or anything else, that could be part of it. But simply by being, I am the value. And I can change that I to the 6.5 or so billion beings, and they are the value.
Right.
And that is how it's all connected. That's what the One People's Public Trust 1776 goes back to, and severs those links in the bondage and returns it to you. Except you're not linear and you're not small, and it is an inside job, and you choose to sever those links or to forge them, either forge new ones or to re-establish the links that were there before. And we're not missing anything, and this is not happening in a vacuum, and we're all clearly now seeing all of this come crumbling down. Is it confusing to some? Yes, it is. Is it chaotic? Yes, it is. Is it simply amazing and perhaps heretofore unfathomable just how amazing, and on the balance side, just how devilish, and I say that intentionally, and how deep and pervasive it is, both the richness and the depravity of it. Yeah, it is. And so we have to decide. And make no mistake about it, we're all in various moments during each day at choice points. Are we forging a link, either back again or a new one, kind of a side link to that bondage? Or are we severing yet another link? Maybe whole sections of links.
For me, when I feel into this topic in regards to the links in the bondage and whether or not you're forging or severing, I'm reminded of some. First, you have to admit there's a bondage situation, okay? And there's an awful lot of beings at this moment that don't like the idea of considering that, but there has been a bondage situation. I'm changing the way I'm beholding that. That's maybe part of the unwinding that I'm doing within myself in regards to that. As I am aware that there are, or I should say have been, or were those who sought to control and perpetuate that said bondage. But I'm awake now. I've come to a cognizance of the situation for myself, and so I don't see myself in bondage anymore. But that, I mean, there are still little, there's smaller ties, I feel, and I'm speaking of that programming and conditioning in regards to some of that still, because a lot of these links of this bondage that I see, that I've been going about in the process of severing, has been part of that programming and conditioning. That was meant to distract me away from the idea that I was being in bondage. You see what I mean? And self-perpetuating said bondage, and therefore also projecting it out for others as well. And this ties into, for me personally, it all goes back to the same thing because it's all interconnected, but that whole thing about following joy, and not, because if this is desirous and this that wants to follow that is also desirous, that's a completion of a circuit that's no one is being harvested. Did that make sense just then?
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to make sure because I'm very swirly, but
No, I had you triggered 10 things I wanted to say, and they swirled in and out so fast. I just that was brilliant. Shoot.
You know, I feel like a fish tank aerator right now. They're going like I might grab one and go, hang on, here, this one, add to it. Yeah.
Yeah, because each one of those links really, for me, translate back to a different program and or conditioning, and which, it's kind of the same thing, but
and they're not all external.
Say what again? I'm sorry.
They're not all external. The bond.
No, that's the whole point.
External.
Right.
In fact, exactly. The bondage is mostly an inside job.
I wanted to say that. You can sort of take the person out of the bondage. What I'm struggling with at this point is taking the bondage out of the person, because it's ingrained, it's habitual, it's a Well, like you were saying, Sheila, it's got these tendrils with specific reasons why it's that way. But it's so insidious in that, I mean, okay, well, or beautiful, because we got 1,000 thread sheets going on here. I mean, this is some pristine, satiny, very tightly silk we got going on here. Oh,
And it's in your cellular memory.
yeah, and that's okay too. It's okay, but I have found myself quite frustrated with it because I'm battling my own, like I'm judging myself in ways that I know aren't the way myself feels about myself. I mean, I know that it's an external implant, if you will. And yet and still, even armed with all of this knowledge, I am still faced with it because
Yeah.
it's
Well, and
there.
that's the conundrum, isn't it? Because you're the slave master, the slave owner, and the slave freer all at the same time.
And each one is dependent upon the other. So there's no freedom on either end of it other than to put it down and have no parts of it. Which is why this deconstructing that we're speaking of here is of utmost importance.
Well, that's why I was saying for me the very first step in the in figuring out as to whether or not you're forging or severing these links in this bondage is to first recognize that there's a bondage situation that you got going on.
Right.
And for, like I was saying, I shared with Lisa once that I now really grasp exactly why I ended up in this one particular seminar in my life. It was specifically because I took this one thing away from a customer service seminar and I didn't really grasp it until now as to what this little older teddy bear of a feller meant. He said that we are in golden handcuffs, and I didn't grasp what he was actually saying back then. Now I get it. Any person who has a nice house and a car and a job and you got the 2.5 kids and the mortgage and a couple of car payments and you got college going on and oh my God, I got to work more hours because now the house payment went up or whatever. That is a golden handcuff. I now get that. I didn't get it at the time that he said that to me. I was, very, very young and very, very asleep. And what the heck is this old man on about? I got a good job. What's he talking about? I like my job. Except for the 2 a.m. hours I was having to put in, things like that I recognize that. So that's one of the first steps is to take a look at, especially, again, for me, especially for those, and there's lots of folks out there, they don't like their boss, they don't like the job, it's busy work, it's dumb, whatever, it's hard to do. If there is anything that is any way, shape, or form not joy, then what are you doing? I don't know. That's, for me, that feels like forging links in bondage.
Yeah, and there's they come in all different shapes, sizes, and structures. I just want to, I got nudged a couple times to swing this for a moment to the new update that came. And some people may see that, they may see this, at least on your channel faster, because I'm like behind the horse and buggy in speed for uploading things from my internet. But anyways, I published this morning early, the 19th of October, just the press release as soon as it came out on the East Coast time, which so that was about 5:30, 6 o'clock Pacific time. It's from Goodlatte and Gowdy, details of a transcribed interview with Rosenstein. And so it's a press release, and it's from the House of Representatives Judicial Committee. And so you can see that. And when it came out, I was actually awoken to go get it. The bell rang, gong, go get it. Go get what? I don't know, but go get it. And at the moment that I published it, I put in italics at the beginning in red a sentence about October 24th and October 24th, 2018 is shaping up to be a busy day for the false construct crumbling down. Many timings, events, connections are occurring on that date. And if you look at the IUV, you'll see other puzzle pieces. You can look anywhere, but the IUV has them highlighted. And if you happen to glance at this particular press release, they're talking about the way they've set up this interview, which will appear, the interview will happen and be transcribed and released all in the same time on October 24th. So that's just one little piece. Okay, then the next thing I did was right away send it to Heather. And I just, in between last conversation we had, I got an update back from her. They've been messing with our communications a lot today. But anyways, so now the post was sticky when I put it up. It will stay sticky, and it has been updated to a universal cleanup data point. And this is what Heather said. The subject is Goodlatte and Gowdy announced details of transcription. Varying reports today. This is Heather's voice. Varying reports today. 6 to 10 unidentified military personnel entered warden's office today. And she's speaking about the Dublin FCI. California local news announced that there are people who may have been incarcerated unlawfully. Thousands of cases under review now. Mainly addressed third strike issues so far. And that's just a few shavings on the tip of the very iceberg. So back in video 1 we did tonight, people were saying, hey, ain't nothing happening. Heather goes on to say, similar to mortgage fraud issue being correctly identified as show me the loan from the incorrect issue of show me the note, judicial issues moving to include grand juries, prosecutors, scam and shrink of legal liability, to judges don't have the authority to sentence, to prosecutors, grand juries don't have the authority to issue charges, true bills. Then, of course, there is the outright corruption, collusion, treason, subversion, etc. of actors within or abusing the DOJ, FBI, and other departments, agencies, bureaus, and branches of the people's government. The people's governments. Governments. So that's not just we the people here on this part of Gaia, but it's all of the governments and all of the people's governments. All the top is already aware that all in the U.S. penal system have to be let out. I'll repeat that. All the top is already aware that all the U.S. penal system have to be let out and all righted to 0 point. The top is also aware that it can all be done in 24 hours or less. She finishes by saying, I just love the name Goodlatte. Yes, please, a dab of chocolate, if you will. Thank you, Beezy and Keegan, for the data stream. Love you. So I just finish up this part here is what we've been talking about all night in the 3 conversations that people can look at, is that everything is connected. And the dots connecting, or as Sheila says, the puzzle pieces they're all lighting up, and they're actually pulsing in a consciousness stream to one another of each other, of those data points, dots to connect, or puzzle pieces. And they are continuing the conversation in real time, because we're not in linear time. And these things are unfolding. And as beings intersect with and connect with those connections and behold what is coming forth in real time in the multidimensionality of it, they can see those data points unfolding into the fruition of the reveal of absolute data. And as you look at that, and this is relevant to absolutely to what we're talking about, because that's a moment as those flash, and you don't even have to be near them. You don't have to see the article. You don't have to, they flash within you, because you are all. You, the cosmos is within you. Every newspaper, every bit, every byte of data is within you. It's part of your cellular structure. It's part of the stuff of what makes you you. And as those go off, it comes within you. And so you choose. Are you forging the links in that bondage, or are you severing it? And, you know, you got to feel your way through it. But, and I'll say again, I keep saying it, but I'll say again, you know, we've been going really slow. Things have been moving really, really, really slow.
I know, and I'm scared of that. No, I'm not. I mean, not, you know. I'm not. I'm trying to face and embrace. I'm trying to breathe into it. Sometimes it's like I can't hardly hold on. It's just so.
Well, that's it. Don't hold on. Fly.
No, you're right. I know.
Fly.
If I could just breathe into it and allow it to go, I could just float in with it.
Remember when we played with a little ways back, you know, soaring on the wings of earth angels. So if your wings aren't quite unfurled enough yet, there's an awful lot who'll help you fly for a while. Draft them or get on their wings, but fly with it. As soon as you let go, you're breaking all, or if not all, a lot of the links, and you're soaring with it.
Well, the energetics right now feel to me as such that it's really going to be a whole lot. I feel like it's going to be easier, and I will. And at this point, as far as forging links and severing them goes, and this goes for the. Once a decision is made, once a recognition of that bondage is actually absorbed, and you know that takes a minute, especially if it's someone that's been really absorbed in it. So, you know, allow yourself a moment, because there's going to be a whole lot of feelings that will surface just from that actual realization that.
And that's one of the reasons that this is such an important topic to play with, not only in this energetic envelope, but has beings, you know, come into contact with and consciousness of it and bring it forth. Because just in your own personal sphere, the poignant and wrenching ramifications of the links that you forged and perpetuated as offshoots from the bondage, at the first blushes that you look at them, will be devastating, quite frankly. And I'm talking about thinking, you know, just to just touch on it lightly, think about all the times in however old you are, and many moments in your life you've had right to this moment, that money and what you can or cannot do, and for your child or your family member or a loved one or a friend, or if you were a teacher, or if you were a member of the community, and however it was, so all those tendrils that go out that all relate around that all tighten, you know, those nooses around our ankle or our neck, and constrict us, and have come out in ways that are so limiting and so belittling and so crushing on so many levels, and many not even intended at that moment. Yet if you will find, as part of your own unwinding and unbinding process, that you will kind of reel back through all of them when you start to recognize this, and they will come as flashes as you unwind and unbind all of it. And it could happen very quickly. It could take a little bit of time. You know, I know for me, as I was reeling back, it was like a 3 or 4 week period, and it was devastating. It was absolutely devastating. And as I unwound and I bound, I released that and could see it and came around to the other side of it. But it was huge. The nice part now is that that's not, you know, so long ago as it was for me. And so I do right now, everybody has those helping hands. They've got all that energy to support it, which wasn't there before.
Well, yes, and because it's not happening in a vacuum, in a vacuum, the fact that you have already been through some of that, Lisa has been through some of that, I've been through some of that. These are actually templates,
yeah,
that made it that much easier, because it isn't happening in a vacuum, because we are all one and yet individual. So make no mistake, where we go one, we go all, folks.
That's right. And what specifically what Sheila is bringing attention to is the path paver and the wave shower.
Yes.
And so that paving of that path, of that unwinding and binding, and the different parts and focuses of it and all that, yes, absolutely, that's what's part of this is. And that's right. where the unity and the singularity actually meet, intersect, come into coherence with each other, and then unfold it all for each.
Right. But because we are unified and yet singular, and I know that's a lot to wrap around as well, but the more multidimensional well, let's put it this way, the more I allow myself to expand and grasp and sit with these feelings and these concepts, and the more I do that, the broader the information highway becomes. And so the more data I can take in and consider when I'm considering a thing, you know, more is already available there or whatever. And wow, I was going somewhere with that. Now that's totally gone. Okay, well.
You jumped down another highway.
Yes, I jumped down another highway. I shot across the lanes. Generally do not do that.
You're on one of those clover leaves. Whee!
Yeah, apparently, yeah.
I like those a lot. Oh, I have to get off? Oh, no.
Well, like I said, once one sits for a bit and figures out that, yes, okay, there's a bondage situation. Oh, okay, yeah, I wanted to go into this because for me, part of severing my links has been realizing that, okay, yes, there was a slavery system input on this planet, and it's been run, okay, not just this planet, I get it, it's a universal thing, okay, so I get that, and I grasp that, and I can see how that is a real thing. And yet, what I keep coming back to for myself is, I'm dismantling that within myself. I'm holding that, or beholding that in a different way also. Part of the severing of my links has been this realization that by only moving towards my highest desire in every moment is my severing of those links, and saying, I will not be harvested under any circumstances, nor will I harvest you, which is exactly why the recording we did earlier today was, there's no hostages on this circus train. I don't want to be involved in a relationship with anything or person or situation where there's not an equal desire to co-create a thing, because that then sets up that harvesting mechanism. Also, need of a thing as opposed to desire. There's a difference there. I'm finally figuring out the difference between need and desire, and there's a shit ton of difference in that. Just feel into those words for a minute. Oh, I need you. I need you. That's a harvesting thing, man. But I desire you now. Who? Wait a minute. That's something altogether different. And if there's a desire on the other end, then that's a co-creative thing. And realizing this, that moving towards only my highest joy is what has helped to sever some of those bonds for me. Oh gosh, I'm even dizzier now than I was when we started this. I have heard others say, but it won't leave. This harvesting system won't leave until the financial system and all that. And I'm like, okay, if that's what I get, you're right. For you, you're right.
Well, so right there, I'm going to stop you on 2 points. So,
okay.
We'll probably come back to this in a minute. So right there, that's an illustration of forging a link, an additional link, or reforging a perhaps severed bondage link in what you just said of, well, until this financial system is right. Because you could say they're paradoxical. They actually are a mirror support structure of each other. So as you perceive that there is the bondage and the scope of the financial bondage, because I think it's fair to say that people will...
Oh, wait a minute. We cannot hear you all of a sudden. I mean, and now she's frozen. Oh, our internet, it says your internet connection is unstable.
Am I back?
Now, yes, you're back, and Lisa jumped too.
Yeah. Were we frozen for you too?
Were we frozen for you, BC?
So, and it worked because it knocked it knocked the feed coming in right out. Let's see here. So I think most people will find that the level of the complexity of the intertwining nature of the reciprocal, expansive nature of the financial slavery system for every single being on the planet is unfathomable. We will fathom it. We can fathom it. Many have fathomed it. They do their integration, they move on and, you know, support others with that. So that's one point I wanted, the 2 points around the chain linking. The other thing is that all of this is from a linear perspective. And as you broaden out, you realize that on this journey, you know, in the trajectory away from source, in this false construct, which we went through many lifetimes, many iterations, many parts on our journey, you know, out away from source, all building, the links in the chain to this, is part of bringing it all back and unwinding and unbinding it, not just for this planet.
I gotcha.
Because remember, you know, there are many, many, many other planets that I think probably safe to say most that don't use the money and not harvesting the way that we do. Although, because there's interactions, you know, that intercedes through. So I'll leave that as a thought. And then also, all of these beings from various races on different planets and societies and sectors and all of that are all multidimensional. So there is no past, present, and future, right? So there's only now. And same as you could hold it that there's no dimensions that go like this, because that's hierarchical, which is also another way to say that it's linearized instead of toroidal. They're actually, all those dimensions are all in, if you looked at one giant energy frequency conduit or tubing, you know, if you think of fiber optic cable, right? They're actually all in the one, they're just different levels, bands of those frequencies within it. So hence, Sheila will like this, the unity of one and the singularity of each.
Right.
So I didn't mean to blow people's mind, but that was just what I was asked to say.
I thought it was great.
So yeah, so that's about the and it's a decision. So as you said, Sheila, you know, your example, which I can't remember right this moment, but your example of,
It was a good one, wasn't it?
it was, do you remember what it was? No.
Which one? The golden handcuffs?
No, you were talking about a specific thing, you know, out there, but you could look at anyone. Their internal structures, you know, internally we have the structures of the bondage, the financial slavery, and external as well, and they're in all sectors and segments. So whether it's college tuition or mortgage or you know, a license or a loan, or, you know, it could be anything.
Well, and loads of different things, actually. It's not going to be just one thing.
Absolutely.
and also, so then I heard, like I said, now there's a couple of beings out there that that I can feel that disagree with this this entire conversation. I will say, well, that's a choice that is being made. This is not, for me, this is not actually a spiritual issue. And I want to say this because I've heard this quite a bit. That this is a spirit, that this is that this thought that I have about let's see, how do I word this properly? I don't view this as necessarily it's not as though if you're spiritual and you get it, then, because there's a few people out there that think that, well, you're just kidding yourself spiritually, that you're not being harvested still. And I want to answer about that, because I know that there's a game being played still that's winding down and unbinding right now on this planet and, elsewhere in all of Source's universe. And and the reason I feel as though I'm not being harvested in this moment is that, first of all, I'm aware of the game, and you can't harvest something that's just freely open for that. And I see what that game is. And since I'm not in resistance to that in some way, I have freed myself also from having to worry about, I don't know, I'm not making sense. I can feel I'm not making sense, but I know.
So hang on, let me interject this for a minute. So you don't have to have a whiff of spirituality in your body to hold the exact same sentiment that you just described of being free from this.
That's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that it has nothing to do with spirituality.
Well,
to me,
it could have everything to do with spirituality and someone who doesn't have a whiff of spirituality in their body, because it's that awareness too, because whether they language it that way or not,
right,
in the realization, in the unmasking of exactly what is there, is a power, and they're like shields up. And yes, there still is harvesting going on others, but it does not have the same effect on you, because you've changed your whole emitter ray as you move through the world.
Right.
So, and that's part of the transmitting. That's part of the path pavers and the way showers. And if someone wants to argue it further, absolutely, all the power to you, great, because that's a whole helpful for you in integrating things. And I was going to say, and you have empirical, irrefutable data evidence. Look around you, because everything's a coming, a tumbling down, right? And it's going to, and it has been going slow, even though some people think it's a fast pace, it's going to speed up here. And all of that data that's there, that's coming all over the place. Just look. You have to, right now, if you're holding the opinion and being honest with yourself that you truly are holding that opinion that nothing is happening and things are not unwinding and binding at an alarming rate, even though I'm telling you they're slow and they are, right, and crumbling down, then you're having to work really, really, really hard to support, hold, and project that illusion for yourself to perceive that.
Yes, agreed.
That's how much that's coming down.
Agreed.
And the reason that's empirical data on the fact that, to go back to where you started this thread, was that you're kidding yourself. It's an illusion. And kind of on the spiritual bent, well, first of all, it's not, because you don't have to have a whiff of spirituality at all, even understand what that is. And those beings still have it going on. They've totally shielded themselves and changed, the trajectory of that. That's part of the plan. That's part of the rules, along with hidden in plain sight. As you polarize in that service to other polarization and that energetic vibrational frequency vibration, you actually have those shields come in. And so your ray emitters shift in that. The other thing is that in beings who are doing that, who've come to that realization, come to that knowing as a core direct experience of knowing within themselves, they are one of the many millions of reasons that this is all now a juggernaut of this unwinding and unbinding. And it's self-perpetuating. It as each one does it, and each little tiny whiff of something unwinds and unbinds, it magnifies it, it accentuates it, it amplifies it, not only in a quantum way of expansion, but in a multidimensional way. So it's now on every level, every layer, every dimension, and every sphere of consciousness, every sphere of a system or strategy or structure.
I don't know why this has come in for me to say, and maybe it belongs in here or doesn't, but the metaphors are so deep at this point for what I've witnessed over the last little bit. You say very much all the time, BZ, that it's an inside job, and every single time you do, I see 9/11 and all the things that have come out since then saying that it's an inside job. And I can see how that's been such a huge metaphor for all of this. Where we go, one we go all. Oh my gosh, that's a big metaphor, isn't it? We are the plan from Q. The other day, that video, are you kidding me? That is a metaphor too. So just all we got to do is everybody just keep severing your links, the ones that choose to do so, because I see us moving confidently forward myself. At every turn where something else is showing up, I see, well, okay, there we go. Yeah, we just keep doing this, man. And it's like palpable how we are communicating with ourselves at every turn. Just pay attention. Pay a little bit of attention. You'll be able to sever your own bonds pretty quickly, actually.
Yes.
Sit with them for just a little bit.
And one of the beauties of it, maybe the singularity of the beauty of this particular, I'm not even sure how to characterize it, nugget, or it's a frequency, is that even if you hold it that it's hooey or what we're discussing, or that there's slavery system or any of that kind of stuff, the beauty of it is that the path pavers and the way showers and the ones without a whiff of spirituality, and they're damn proud of it, and all of the others in between that are aware, that are going on. The beauty of the singularity of the beauty that's beholding is that it doesn't matter whether you get it or you understand it or you believe it or it's hooey, because it is universal, it is multidimensional, and it holds. And when we come to that place, whether, a lot of people look at OPPT, One People's Public Trust, 1776, and all that hooey. And look at this, all that hooey. And the beauty of it is that it's unwinding and unbinding it for all. For the ones who played the perceived good roles, the ones who played the perceived, it's a bunch of horse shit, ones who played the role of perceived, oh, those rat bastard liars, the ones who played the perceived role of the devil's incarnate. It doesn't matter. Because where we go one, we go all. We may go there in slightly different iterations and slightly different frequency, vibrational signatures as we choose to flow. But it takes everyone, every being, every singularity as one into a whole new trajectory.
Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm.
Which is pretty lucky for those who have been saying the horse puckies all along. Because there is no judgment, and there is no castigation, and there is, well, hey, you weren't on board, so there is none of that, because that's linear bullshit.
Yeah, and that is, and that also too, that's the old way.
Yeah.
That's the old way, and quite frankly, to continue in that is forging new links. To continue in that, and this is back to one of our other conversations in regards to tit for tat. Got to get them rat bastards. They got to pay for what they've done, that kind of thing. That's that really old, that's old energy that's not here anymore. That's not going forward. And that's just different energy now. We're not in that. That's continuing to forge links in that bondage.
Yes, and it's really important to note that every single one of us, every single being, at one moment or many moments, have been sublimely delicious rat bastards.
Oh, yes.
And really, 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 really,
and
really good rat bastards.
And some of us in this lifetime, because you know what? I've been a rat bastard in this lifetime. I mean, maybe not a horrifically heinous one, but I've been pretty, I've been pretty rat bastardy. So, where we go one, we go all is a real thing. So, I'm sure there's plenty of rat bastards out there that can say, yeah, you know what? Me too.
Me too.
That's okay. And you know what else? Say there's another thing too, that hashtag me too. People that I'm telling you, that's another one. We're just open our eyes just a little bit, look around. You are really trying your hardest to communicate with you on a whole bunch of different levels.
That goes back to the pulsing I was talking about. I don't remember if I did it on camera or in here, but I know I did it off camera, but maybe in here too, where all those pieces of data are pulsing information back to each other. So whether it's a hashtag or this or that, or a story or a saying or a tweet or a Facebook or a blah, 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 right? They're all pulsing back to each other, and it's a conversation.
Right. Well, and in fairness, and part of these links of bondage that we have forged collectively over eons of time in regards to, because some of those links equate to programming and conditioning that we have perpetuated throughout time. Granted, at some point way back, it might not have been like that, but there was a certain amount of tinkering and programming that went on, and then we all just kind of went along and said, okay, we're doing this now this way, and we've been doing that all along. I believe me, when you were talking about when you wake up to some of the, rat bastardy things, the programming of my child fell into that category. And I'm still seeing the ramifications of that in his life. He's 35, but I see programming and conditioning that he at this point he's not been able to see for himself yet necessarily.
You're talking about programming that you did that he received at your hand.
Oh yes, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, I just want to highlight that to make sure people got it.
No, I was going to make damn sure people got that, because I can tell you, I have
directly related to financial slavery.
Oh yes, and it permeates every single thing. Specifically, this idea that we have to slave ourselves the way we do because because of lack, because of any kind of idea of lack, or all of those kinds of things, that acquiescing to authority outside of himself. Oh my God, that's a huge one. That is such a huge one. And so, but once I started recognizing my own programming, I damn sure saw it was like in 2014, something clicked inside of me when I started getting some clarity of mind, from my health wise. I started seeing some of what, the first thing I saw was some of the damage that I had done in my child's life, in my husband's life, not just unconsciously, oh my God, having a few realizations of, oh my God, what have I done? This is horrific. And so I went into a little slump behind some of that at first. So yeah, when I first realized, because again, he's his own being, and just like I had to come to terms with and I'm still dealing with a lot of my own programming, to see my handiwork in him has been, mortifying to know and see. And we've had conversations about it, because I wanted him to know that I'm very, very well aware of what I've done. And of course, he hears that, but I'm not sure he's taking it in exactly the expansion level I was hoping for, but that's not for me to determine. That's
and you're illustrating just little tiny bits of what I was talking about before when I started this, about how unfathomable it is, and it's just wrenching. It's absolutely heart-wrenching when that light bulb, even if it's just a tiny little 20-watt bulb goes on, it's like, holy shit, I cannot believe what I did. I mean, here I went through iterations of the rat bastards out there, and whoa, right here.
Yes.
Well,
and it goes further and deeper and more horrific than that as you look into it. And that's why the compassion piece is important. But in part of the considering whether or not one is forging links or severing links in terms of your own bondage, for me, acknowledging there's a problem is that bondage is actually really there, is the first step, of course, as with anything, acknowledging the issue. But then,
well, how fast does the denial come up, and how strong is the denial of it? Well, that there's bondage, that there's links or not, that all of that kind of stuff is that shielding on the program, and much of it self-perpetuated by you, each individual you. That's a good, if there's some kind of response that's demonstrable, or I would probably, the better way to phrase it is that is not of a balanced 0 point nature going, yeah, wow, holy shit, which is more in the 0 point energy, right? There's a recognition and the integration and then the moving forward almost simultaneously. If you're not having that, then that's a good, a very good indication that you got the forge and, the forge, or what's the tool, the jet, the lighter,
Welding tool?
yeah, there you go, the welding forge in one hand, and you got some links and nice new metal on them that you can go
Yep. I agree. So I mean, it's not as hard as it might seem, but it can be painful at first.
Yes.
Especially and there's always a bit of cognitive dissonance. There's even though I know what cognitive dissonance is, and even though there's always a little bit of cognitive dissonance. And I'm surprised by it almost every time. when I find something within me that I haven't unwound and unbound yet, there's still a little bit of cognitive dissonance that's associated with it. So I feel like that's a given. And if we just kind of, okay, well, is this cognitive dissonance? That's a question I've had to ask myself a couple of times. Am I in resistance to this for some reason? Is this cognitive dissonance? Let's look into that a little bit. Some of this process goes pretty quick in me now.
And there's also pockets of profound and profane sadness. So you can come to a really good expanded spot of integration and all that, and then you may read something, hear an article, or come into connection with something. Maybe it's a conversation someone is sharing, or something. And I know this happens for me where it's a twin thread of profound and profane sadness so this would be looking from a very linear perspective of just what we have done to ourselves, to each other, in such a all-encompassing, pervasive way. And so I experience myself in those pockets. I watch myself experiencing myself in those pockets. And I also, because I'm talking about my multidimensionality, I also love myself experiencing and watching myself in those pockets, and then celebrate myself. So in that description, I've now, the last is the soul part, which is all of me, and I'm talking about me, so every layer. Celebrate that, because in that, as I can have that multi-locational consciousness of that, I have actually had the holding take place. So it's not a healing, because there was nothing ever wrong with me, because the different perspectives that I held, the different vibrations in my whole bandwidth of the being that is me, was experiencing those things. And so nothing ever wrong, because that was the fullness of that trajectory, of that bandwidth, of that aspect of my being. And as I have that multi-locational consciousness and come out to the celebration part of this particular laser focus I'm talking about, which is the profound and the profane sadness, there is such celebration and jubilation and just simple bliss you know, which I used to hate that word, because when I was down in the, you know, the little conduit here, and I'm like, yeah, I'll take your bliss and show you where the sun doesn't shine with it, you know.
I got you, bliss.
but that's really what it is, because you come out to that. And you know, I've been doing it for a while and look at a lot of things and know a lot of things, and I still have the occasional pockets. They don't last but a nanosecond, but they're deep, and they're very rich in that. And there is a celebration, because it's almost like, I don't know why this comes to mind, but in the what's the Jimmy Stewart movie where the angel gets his wings, the bell rings?
It's A Wonderful Life.
Okay. So, you know, as those pockets come in, there are now other collectives within the larger collective that are actually coming to that discovery and uncovering. And so it can reach out an even further wave of expansion. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, because it's not happening in a vacuum. What'd you say, Lisa?
It feels really good too. You can feel the waves of it.
Yeah. Wow, this has been another good one. We don't do anything that's not good. I'm just saying. I learn something out of every conversation I have, so
Yeah, today was a big day.
there's that. So, do either one of you have anything else you want to add to this one? There's lots there. We will probably revisit this, I feel.
It's a deep subject, and I feel like we've just sort of.
Wait a minute. Wow. Okay.
What happened there?
I was about to say, what did we lose, BZ? And she just bounced.
I did bounce.
Yeah, you did bounce.
Yeah, we're uncovering a lot of deeply held stuff that this is occurring on multiple regions of collectiveness, you know, cohesive collectives of thought, feeling, and resonance patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I have said this a lot in the last little bit here, and I'll say it again here now. Part of the energetic that is really in play right now is this. It is this Venus in retrograde, pulling up your relationship with the links in your bondage are up for review. You know, it's everything right now, and we're only roughly halfway through this retrograde period.
And one of the reasons we've been having so much interference tonight in this, you know, string that we've been playing with is because that's undesirable from the energetic that does not want to have those steps forward made.
And yet we press on. We don't let that stop us.
Well, yeah, hence that I just sat here going, well, just wait a second and the team will take care of it. And the recording never stopped either, which I think is really funny because, you know, how do you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Right?
From linear electronics, it doesn't work, but apparently we're not on that. So there you go.
No, exactly. Wow. This has really been a fantastic evening overall, ladies. We haven't there's 3 great conversations tonight, and I want to thank you both so much.
And it was funny, you know, just so you guys were talking about how it's deep and how they go on, but a couple of these, well, there's many on these sheets here that say similar things, and the 3 we've done tonight as an example. There's, I think, 2 more. And at first blush, they seem, well, that one's saying the same as that one, is saying the same as that one. I said, no,
no, they are slightly, because I did say, well, that kind of feels like it's kind of this over here, like it would go together. But I can see now that no, they wouldn't actually. But that's just it. Everything is all interconnected, so it's going to feel slightly connected.
Yet when you play in, you know, when you jump in the quantum playground to play with it, you realize that, you know, you may only be in a 12 by 12 box playing right this moment, but you haven't even done, you know, 1 square centimeter of
yeah, exactly,
of that particular playground. So.
Yeah. Wow. Well, shall we, ladies? Is there anything else that either one of you would like to add to this one?
All the usual things, and
yep, that's right. All the usual things. And you know what? I really would like to hear from some folks in regards to your thoughts and feelings about this one. I know that for the most part, today, which is October the 20th, for the most part, it feels like most folks that will view this right away anyway are already very well aware of their bondage and are already looking at that. But I do know that there are more and more folks drawn to our conversations all the time. And so if the first thing that comes up within you is, well, I'm not in bondage, there's your place to start and really sit and ask yourself a lot of questions about that, especially if you have a job you don't like.
Yeah, or something that's, you know, financial or regulatory perceived as outside of you, that's doing something to you that you need to deal with. The other thing I've been nudged, and I ignored it several times over the course of the evening, but I will be a good a good doobie and mention this time, if there's anybody who sees this, who plays with this, who interacts with this, would like to come play around the quantum campfire, then there's information on how to do that.
Right. Yes, all of BZ's information is in the show more section of this, and all of my videos with BZ. Her information is all right there. So if you're interested in doing that, please do. I highly recommend playing with BZ. But be sure that you're willing to look at a thing. Okay, well, till next time. Mwah.